Welcome back to another episode of Next Week with Jeff Durbin. I am Jeff Durbin, and I have a very special guest today, my friend Dr. Michael Brown. We are talking about his new book, Jezebel's War with America. Dr. Brown, welcome to Next Week with Jeff Durbin.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. So excited about this. Let's get right into it. The name of the book is Jezebel's War with America. It is available right now across all the platforms, including Amazon. It's called Jezebel's War with America. Dr. Brown, who's Jezebel and what are we talking about?
So here's the long and short of it. I believe that the same demonic powers that operated through Queen Jezebel 3,000 years ago, that empowered her, that made her so dangerous, the same demonic powers that operated through a woman that Jesus called Jezebel in the New Testament 2,000 years ago, that those same demonic powers are in operation in America today with a joint plot, you could say, to destroy our nation. So it's not the spirit or the ghost of Jezebel, but we refer to Jezebel as this same type of demonic attack. And the simple thing is this: connect the dots. That when you go to a doctor and you say, I'm having a pain here, and I'm getting fever here, and I'm weak here, and he goes, oh, that's thus and such. Well, it's the same thing here. So Jezebel in the Bible, she was a pagan princess who married the godless king Ahab. But then we read that she incited him to do more evil. She was a zealous idol worshiper. According to 2 Kings 9, she was associated with sexual immorality and with sorcery.
Okay.
We know that in the ancient world, idolatry was tied in with baby killing. And for sure, she was a murderer. She slaughtered the prophets. And she even intimidated at one point the mighty prophet Elijah, and he ran away in fear. And we see from her relationship with her husband that she emasculated men and had that paralyzing effect. Well, you look at what America was dealing with 50 years ago, 100 years ago, different times in our history. It was not the same range of things we're dealing with today. The tremendous turning away from God towards idols, the militant baby killing spirit. We're not talking about a 13-year-old girl raped by her uncle who's agonizing over whether to have an abortion or not. We're talking about the Shout Your Abortion movement, the people pounding on the doors of the Supreme Court and screaming for their rights to abort their babies during the Kavanaugh hearings. You also have, at the same time, the resurgence of radical feminism. You have the rise of witchcraft. Reportedly, there are more witches in America today than there are Presbyterians. You also have unprecedented epidemics of sexual morality because of pornography and internet and people having access, little kids having access to things that when I was in my rebellion in the 60s, I didn't even know these things existed. So you have all these things coming together at the same time. And to me, it's self-evident. It's not just societal things happening. It is Satan himself working through these demonic powers who remind us of Jezebel. With it also, the silencing of the prophetic voices, people cowering in fear rather than speaking up and speaking the truth. You have that element as well factored in. And then here's something fascinating. Some folks, both Jewish and Christian authors, have compared President Trump to a Jehu-type figure in the Bible. So whether you voted for Trump, whether you would never vote for Trump, that's immaterial. Jehu was a man that was going to do a lot of good for the religious cause, but there was also a lot of collateral damage. And he was described as driving recklessly or being like a maniac. So in my book, Jezebel's War with America, I have headlines. Everything that's said about Jehu is said about Trump. But Jehu comes into the final conflict with Jezebel. So when you have an alpha male like Trump, whether you love him or loathe him, you kind of see the kind of guy he is. This brings now not just women who are concerned about his misogyny in the past and his sexism and things like that. No. It brings out the blow up the White House type women, right, and hold Trump's beheaded head up. It brings out the witches cursing Trump and cursing the patriarchy. And then when you factor in also the emasculating of men in our society, going from shows I watched as a kid, Father Knows Best, to an idiot like Homer Simpson of The Simpsons, or some inept father like the one in Everybody Loves Raymond.
Right.
There's been this emasculating of men as well. So I look at all this, I connect the dots, and I recognize, yes, these are cultural forces. Yes, we're all responsible. No one can say the devil made me do it. And yet we see that Satan is really at work in this Jezebelic way to destroy our society.
That's powerful, Dr. Brown. I do think it's amazing how you're connecting those dots. And if people aren't, I think probably most everyone in our audience is familiar with who you are, Dr. Brown, but when I first got to know who you were, I got to see you in conflict on a scholarly level with the rabbis and those who were Jewish, and they were asking very hard questions, and you were providing very biblical, very sound, reasoned responses. And so I always appreciated you even as a young man, as an apologist, as somebody who thought in very, very rigorous categories. And I saw you as a scholar, and I've seen you over the last decade in particular, and I know it's been for a long time you've been engaging in this, but in particular the last decade, you've been engaging very, very effectively in the cultural war and to bring the gospel, the biblical worldview into conflict with the culture. You did originally very powerfully with the book A Queer Thing Happened to America, which I highly recommend to everybody who's watching this right now. Get a copy of A Queer Thing Happened to America on your shelves. But in this particular book, Jezebel's War with America, you engage often on your daily program and all that you put out across social media platforms. You engage often with some of these very difficult issues. What are you trying to ultimately accomplish with a book like Jezebel's War with America? I know what you were trying to do with A Queer Thing Happened to America, but this is a sort of broader, very interesting, very powerful approach. What do you want to accomplish with the release of a book like this?
So first, I want to expose the enemy. I want people to see how our culture is being spiritually sabotaged. I want them to be able to connect the dots, because when you connect the dots, you see how evil all of this is. You see that the shout your abortion movement is just as evil as porn. And you see that porn is just as evil as the war on gender. And when you recognize what you're dealing with, Paul writes to the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians, says, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. He writes in Ephesians 6 that we don't wrestle with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers in heavenly places. So let's understand that there is spiritual war taking place. Let's wake up to that. Yes. In that sense, let's expose Jezebel. That's first. And then second, let's take stock in our own lives. Have we been silenced? Have we been seduced? Have we been put on the sidelines through these various things? Or are we complicit? Look, even the war on gender distinctions within the church reflects part of the degeneration of the larger culture. So it's for Christians to wake up, and then this will enable us to pray all the more effectively for revival in our country, to preach repentance. The goal is ultimately to throw another piece of wood in the fire to help spark awakening in America, starting with revival in the church. But by exposing the enemy, by recognizing that what looks like a lovely smiling face, 2 Kings 9, Jezebel paints her face when she meets Jehu. Behind it are venomous teeth. And one other thing, fascinating account in 2 Kings 9, when Jehu meets Jezebel, she first is going to seduce him and then kind of speaks to him in a denigrating way, and he has none of it. And he said, who's on my side? And the account says 2 or 3 eunuchs were there, because she's talking to him from a window, and they throw her out. So we're not talking about people. We're not calling individuals Jezebel. No. We're talking about spiritual demonic forces that we're putting under the heading of Jezebel. But it's interesting that the eunuchs, the castrated males, are the ones that throw her down. And we need men to stand as men. Today, if you try to be a man, a loving father, a loving husband, if you try to be a godly leader, that's toxic masculinity. Right. We've got things so turned upside down, and women can't be women, and everything's getting perverted and twisted. So those are the ones who've been, so to say, emasculated spiritually, and the ones who've lost their sense of authority, and the ones who've lost the right roles that they can play in a godly way. They need to rise up and, spiritually speaking, cast Jezebel down.
Powerful, Dr. Brown. I think it's important that people pay attention to what you're saying here, and I do want to leave this on a final note here. I think that this in particular is important for us as we engage with the biblical God and the biblical gospel against the culture in what we're facing now. we have to recognize, in particular, in an environment of social media and the ease through which people can just drop nasty comments and be divisive and slanderous and those sorts of things, how important it is for us as we engage these things to do it with unity, biblical, sound, strong unity. For example, I'm Reformed. You're not Reformed. My fellow elder, Dr. James White, is Reformed. You guys have engaged on issues in which we disagree strongly, but we are brothers in the Lord. We love the same God and the same gospel, and we're ultimately fighting for the culture with the light of the gospel. And I think it's important for you and I to express to others, even with the adiaphora, the side issues, the significant issues even we might have with one another, we need to stand with hand in hand together as we fight against the culture in this way.
Yeah, look, the bottom line is when the church gets persecuted and say under communism and things like that, you got people from a lot of different denominational backgrounds sitting in the same prison cell because they're just identified as followers of Jesus. You've got the Reformed and the Arminian, you've got the charismatic and the non-charismatic, you've got a wide range. And if we agree on the fundamentals and hold to the authority of the word and the centrality of Jesus, sure, we can learn from each other, we can challenge each other, but we've got to realize we have a common enemy. Look, the fact is, you'll get more flack than I will, but you'll get flack for me being on the show rather than saying, hey, let's deal with these demonic forces trying to destroy our culture. Let's stand together against the onslaught of this extreme activism.
Right.
And then we'll have our differences privately and challenge each other. That's fine.
Right.
But we must wake up to the reality of the battle. These are life and death issues. I'm 64 now. I'm not a pessimist. I'm full of faith and confidence in God, but I have never seen America in as precarious a position as it is today. What kind of world are we leaving to our children and grandchildren? That's a big question.
That's right. Dr. Brown, you are a blessing as always, brother. Okay, so where can people go to get the book?
They should be able to get it anywhere, bookstores. If they order it on Amazon, post a review thereafter if the book is a blessing to you, but it's available all the online bookstores and hopefully your local bookstore as well.
All right, guys, my friend, my brother, Dr. Michael Brown, make sure you guys pick up a copy of the book, Jezebel's War with America. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for joining us right here on Next Week with Jeff Durbin.
My joy.
Thank you, brother. All right, guys, stay with us. Be right back after this break.
I want their faith to not just be something that stands, but something around which culture can be built.
We want students who can think critically about arguments, but also about the culture around them. They can then speak clearly to it, and that also have the ability to influence and shape because of the power of their message. Because that's really what the gospel does. The gospel throws down all the arguments against it. It speaks to the hearts of people, it influences, and it changes. If you can think of the flinch of their mind, when you throw a ball at somebody, some people jump back and some people reach forward to catch it. We want to shape graduates who their mind flinches in terms of cultural influence. When they hear an argument that needs to be engaged with, when they see a message that needs to be dealt with, that we want people who jump towards it and go after it. And that's what our curriculum is about.
Go to apologiastudios.com, get signed up, partner with us in All Access. You get all of the radio programs, you get the TV show, you get the after show, including Apologia Academy, and you partner with us in ministry, bringing the gospel around the world. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Next Week with Jeff Durbin. I am Jeff. That is Luke the Bear. That is Joy the Girl. Are we doing that for this show? Pretty much. No? Are we allowed to do that? I'm just used to it. I'm used to it. Okay. So before we jumped into the show there, after our interview with Dr. Brown, we were talking about youth group experiences and things like that, and how we injured ourselves every time during youth group.
Well, that's how we all met.
That is how we all met. Some people don't know that. Like, we're growing, like, we're getting grays, and you're carrying a baby now. And
I do actually have some gray hair.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
I do.
No. How old are you now?
30.
You should never ask a woman her age on TV.
30. Oh man, we are gonna die soon. It's happening.
Like you said, we'll be in heaven, and we'll be like, wow.
Remember that time at youth camp? Remember that time? We've had so many cool experiences. Yeah. Like youth, when I was a youth pastor at LifeQuest, and you were pastoring the youth with me, we did things that we ought not to have done in terms of dangerous things. We had the fire department show up because we filled like a 25,000 square foot space up with fog.
Yeah.
And we had all the lights turned out, and we had like music playing.
We did have strobe lights too.
And with strobe lights, we turned strobe lights on with fog in the hallways, and we had children running full blast and crashing into each other, full throttle, no gear, and because they were trying to escape. And
we just had the one fog machine, right?
No, it was several.
Okay.
It was several. We filled the whole place up.
We should like leave a review or something.
Yeah, your fog machine was awesome. Yeah, no, and one time I jumped into pure darkness off of a ledge in a big auditorium.
Yeah, just the void.
Just because what were we playing?
Capture the flag.
Capture the flag, and I didn't want to get caught.
Right.
So I jumped off the sound booth into darkness where there were chairs, just to avoid getting caught.
You were at least 10 feet off the ground.
I was at least 10 feet off of the end, but I did not get tagged.
Well, yeah.
Which is the important thing.
The most important thing.
The chairs, yes. I almost broke my legs, but yeah. And you busted your face.
I have a scar on my eyebrow because I was cheating, and I ran into the butt end of the cross.
There was a cross on the stage where we're worship, and the word of God goes out, and you walked in darkness and boom,
right into it.
Because you were cheating.
I was cheating.
Well,
I know.
Providence of God.
Convicted right there. That's conviction in full.
Yeah, that's right. Were you ever injured during these youth group activities?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. But obviously it didn't make the...
No scars.
And for the record, all of this took place. This was not like our worship service. We had done worship.
We're not Bethel.
No, we're not Bethel. Yes, we done the Word of God. This was us like our sleepovers, like basically sort of thing.
After the lesson.
Yeah, it was the
then
fun.
It was a free for all.
Time.
Yeah, and then it was chaos. This is what it was. It was chaos.
Survival of the fittest.
So
really was.
Yeah, we've traveled around the world together. We've done youth group together. We have been through trauma and tragedy together. We have busted our faces on crosses together. We've been surrounded by bees.
Oh yeah, that too.
We'll leave it at that.
Hung out with Steve,
So welcome to next week. Hey, so we have a lot to talk about. Just I wanted actually to talk with Joy. I thought it was kind of interesting in terms of what Dr. Brown was talking about with us and Jezebel's spirit and all the really interesting things he's keying in on. And what Joy and Summer talk a lot about and theologians in terms of feminism and the effect that has on culture. I like how that sort of connects. But before we do that, I think you probably have something you want to talk about.
Yeah, actually a couple things. One, I don't know if you guys saw this, just kind of tying the whole conversation with Jezebel, and we recently did a interview with Dr. Brown for Stonewall, which will be released. You'll be able to see that. Stonewall, and I happened to just see it. Even Lego hasn't escaped the gay agenda. Did you see that?
I'm sorry, say what now?
Lego has not escaped the gay agenda.
Lego has not escaped the gay agenda. How so?
They did the world's tiniest gay pride parade in June.
Lego did.
Lego.
Well, Legos are also pretty...
In New York, go figure.
Was it?
In New York, at the Lego store, Legoland in New York, yeah.
It had like a gay pride parade.
Yeah, like Legos,
It was the parade?
They did an actual little parade, yeah.
Oh.
That's
interesting.
I
was just going to say that Legos are kind of like gender neutral, like the actual guys. So
you
maybe
could
they were
switch the
like
hair around
already.
and dresses. and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys heard it here. You've been
Yeah.
tricked.
You've been
by
tricked the whole
Lego all
time.
this time.
They were gay the whole time. All right.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, I didn't.
Oh
know
my
if you saw
gosh, my
that,
Legos
so-
are gay?
Okay. Yep. So hopefully no one clips that out.
And now that you said it, you just gave the idea, yeah?
So this is kind of this really happened, but I thought it was really funny, and it doesn't have to do with the gay agenda, but it has to do with just everything we're talking about, Jezebel and the destruction of the family and all that stuff. So obviously, recently there was this the Democratic debate, presidential debate.
The most recent one?
Yeah, which is.
Did you see it?
No, but I've read things.
Can I just say my favorite, which will probably maybe even slip a clip into this when we do it, is when they were all trying to virtue signal in the most recent one before this, where they all started speaking in Spanish.
Oh no!
Did you see it?
No, even Biden.
Oh, it's so cringe worthy.
Cue that.
Because everybody knows that you're full of it because
You're white.
you practice this, you rehearse this, and I would think that even the people that they're speaking to like this, they're like, don't do that to me, don't act like I'm a fool.
It's pandering.
It's pandering, and it was, and then when one did it, then the next guy tried to do it, and then it was like a competition, like who could sound,
to do the most
could one-up
languages.
who could do with the best accent, and so we'll probably slip some of those
Did it
in
end
here.
with them wearing like sombreros?
Yeah, it was really, it was, those cringe videos.
They like pulled out tacos.
You could do 35 minutes of cringe videos off of just that
Do
thing.
you guys ever get like any physical reaction to cringy things?
Yeah.
So sometimes even before I think, oh, like this is really cringy, I get these like tingles,
Yeah.
and where I'm watching something, I'm just like, no, it's bad.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the tingles that indicate it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I haven't
Well,
even
tingles.
totally realized
I got
it
a
yet.
case
You
of the
just
tingles.
hang on now. You just created like a new hashtag for YouTube is
Yeah.
tingle videos.
Yes,
Like,
tingle
does this
videos.
make you tingle?
Yeah.
Like,
Don't recommend watching this, but the newest Miley Cyrus music video
Does it give you
made
the
me feel
tingles?
that way.
does it give you the tingles?
Yeah, it was truly horrific.
Hashtag tingles.
Yeah, don't.
I don't even-
Hashtag nobody watch it.
Yeah. Hashtag don't watch that. Okay.
Was she
so
wearing clothing this time?
I mean, I think there's a moment where clothing is so tight that does it count?
yeah, is it really there? But is it really there though?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah. Interesting.
She's very lost.
Yeah.
Person.
So speaking of pandering, so Kirsten Gillibrand, I believe was her name. So she's a white U.S. senator running for, or hoping to run for, Democratic presidential nomination. So she's openly said that she has benefited from her whiteness. She said that. I think maybe even in the debate. And she said that she could explain white privilege to women who voted for Trump. So this is how she explained it to them, or how she would explain it to them. She said, when their son is walking down the street with a bag of M&Ms in his pocket, wearing a hoodie, his whiteness is what protects him from not being shot. When their child has a car that breaks down and he knocks on someone's door for help and the door opens and help is given, it is his whiteness that protects him from not being shot.
Oh. Ew.
And she wants to run for president.
Oh man, it's just getting low down and dirty.
Yeah.
And ugly. Yeah.
Well, and just weird and
Yeah.
not pandering, but like, I don't know. It's a totally different thing. I don't know. It seems like it would be insulting to the person it's meant to.
Well, that's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah, like
that's what I'm aiming at. It's like
you're
you're
like to everyone who's listening to this, if you are black, the only like.
Let me treat you like
luckily you've not been shot.
Yeah.
Because of just
With
who
M&Ms
you
in your
are.
pocket.
yeah, treat
You
you
know?
like you're ignorant or stupid enough to fall for my
Right.
signaling and my pandering and those sorts of things. I wouldn't want it done to me in terms of if somebody was trying to use the race issue with me as a white person. Like, let me placate to your white sensitivities to some degree. I would personally be offended. And I think we should all be offended when people dwindle down humanity to your color and make all the election issues about the color of your skin, when in reality there are bigger, more fundamental, principled issues at stake that everyone needs to be concerned with. And it seems like if you watch the Democratic debates and the discussions that they're having, it becomes embarrassing for the Democratic candidates.
Well,
in
Hillary
terms of,
tried to do that too.
Yes.
Hillary tried specifically to like pander to the black community, and they were offended.
They were offended by
Well,
it.
and it's because it's just, I mean,
Oh, they're hot sauce.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to. I'm sorry, but politicians, not all of them, I know, but like when someone's in a debate or when someone's up giving a speech regarding an election of some kind, it's kind of just like, well, why are you saying that? Are you saying that for my vote? Like, why are you up there talking about white privilege?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Right.
It just seems like a really bad tactic to me. Instead of like trying to defend herself against white privilege, it's like, oh no, I'm going to try the opposite.
Right.
And it just comes across as
It'd be nice to get to a place where we have a culture that actually reveres someone's intellect and wisdom and their principles and their ability to articulate and to reason through issues because they have wisdom and knowledge and rigorous intellect, rather than placating to somebody's momentary cultural hashtag.
Right.
Like it's almost like the Democratic side and even with the Republicans, it's the same problem. It's a Democrat, Republican. We're not saying left, right, those sorts of things, but it's almost as like they essentially run through like, what are the popular hashtags right now? Okay.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to talk about because you need to placate to these people who love this hashtag. And that
so next
becomes,
we'll be talking about tingles.
Yeah, and that becomes that becomes the election. The election becomes it's about hashtags.
Yeah, I want your vote.
It's embarrassing. We are. I think what's sad about where we're at today is we've abandoned a Christian worldview fundamentally in our culture. And so I'll just say this bluntly, and I'm not trying to be mean-spirited, but we've become stupid. We're a nation of ignorant people.
Yeah.
We can't think 5 steps ahead. All we have is the moment, the emotion, the feeling, and the appeal. That's all we have. It's just like, how are you going to make me feel right now? How are you going to appeal to my emotions and my moments? Like, it's all we have. We can't think far enough ahead, steps ahead, to reason through consequence. What does this mean? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for my checkbook? What's it mean for my future? What's it mean for my tax situation? What's it mean for my children and my grandchildren? All we are is a nation of idiots.
I don't know if you saw.
I'm saying that as a generalization,
No, yeah,
everybody. I'm saying, but that's in terms of the media and how we're being played to by the candidates. We're a nation of fools.
Yeah.
In many ways.
I just shared it, I think yesterday or even today on Facebook. I don't know if you saw. I think somebody that was family member of a victim from Sandy Hook has actually sued Remington.
Yeah.
Because they marketed their assault rifles.
Right.
So now they're the ones that are at fault because somebody else, ding dong went and shot up a bunch of people with it.
Right.
And the first court awarded them, and so I think it might be going to the Supreme Court now.
Unreal.
But I was like, that's literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
When I say stupid or when I say fool, I'm using biblical categories and definitions. Yeah. Fools do not delight in understanding. They don't want to understand. Right. They don't want to know. Right? And so when I say fool and I say something is stupid, that's what I'm trying to say, is they don't want to have wisdom and understanding and to be able to think things through and truly understand. They don't want to know. And so that's when I say we're a nation of fools. That's what we're becoming, is we don't delight in understanding. We don't want to know. We don't want God's wisdom. We don't want His truth. And so we're living, it's in many respects, watching the Democratic debates and discussions feels like the kinds of, I remember being in elementary school and actually playing out political debates in class. We actually had to record them and played out political debates like we were running for political office and those sorts of things. It feels like the same thing, except with big boy pants on, right? Like it's grown-up clothes, but the same kinds of like children trying to win the vote, but 5 minutes after recess and lunch.
I'll give you guys all candy.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
You see my candy that I'm offering?
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you marijuana.
Right. I mean,
I'll make shrooms legal.
Oh yeah.
What do you think, millennials? I'll make president. I'll make shrooms legal.
Do I have the vote?
Woo, woo, big ups to shrooms, right? Like that's. Like I feel no. Seriously, I saw an ad.
Does anybody actually say that?
Yeah, big ups. I saw an ad of one of the candidates for running for president, and that was her whole thing. Was she was talking? It was all about marijuana. That was her platform. It was like
Hashtag big ups the pot.
like how do I? So like she was wearing blue. So like like she didn't say I'm Democratic or I'm left.
Oh, yeah.
She was wearing blue. So she's dumb. She's with me. She's on my team.
Yeah.
And she was talking about like marijuana and like that's her whole thing. She was like, I'm running for president and nobody should be in jail for weed, right? And like everyone's like, dang, she's getting my votes, right? Like, can I smoke with you? Like. That's the whole, like that's what I mean. Like it's like between cafeteria and recess. So it's like I'm in the playground going, will you put me in the student council? Will you like vote for me? I'll totally give you pot. I will.
I mean, literally.
Like literally, I'll give you weed. Like, and so I just feel like that's where we're at today. It's very sad.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've kind of been reduced to. We are. I mean, you say idiot. I don't find myself offended at all.
Offended.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because okay, so like I'm not trying. I'm a pastor. I'm a Christian. I'm supposed to love my neighbor and do good to those. So when I'm trying to speak in biblical categories, when I say idiot, fool, stupid,
Right.
I mean in terms of how the Bible would describe those sorts of things. And I think the problem is that we're not willing to talk about things today anymore as stupid, as ignorant, as just dumb.
Or we are willing to talk, but in a way that's totally not, doesn't like move towards anything.
Right.
Like people have conversations on the internet all day, but the great thing about the internet for idiots is that you can ignore everything that happens that you don't like.
Right.
Or you can just report a comment or, like we do, when we do the radio show, there will be people like the conversation. I mean, sometimes we have some really inflammatory stuff happening in the comments and we boot those people.
You're right.
You know who you are, Holocaust deniers.
And flat earthers.
But then sometimes it's just like it's just nothing. Nothing's happening. And people are like, who's the moderator in here? And I'm like, can you guys just get over it? Like, if you don't like the comments that are being said, you may leave the comments. Like, you don't have to be in there.
Right.
And then you have people that are, the internet is like become just this one big unsolicited or solicited opinion. And we all just give our opinions and we all just like, one day we might feel this about this thing and the other day we'll feel this about even though the situations are very close, but I'm the arbiter of everything that's real. So I kind of decide, like, how are you even supposed to, even if you wanted to have a conversation in that kind of society, how could you?
Yeah.
How, like, like idiot is the best word for it because it's nothing. It's just, it's like people all talking at different walls.
Right. And we've also, I think we have been affected truly by the zeitgeist spirit of the age in terms of hate speech. And like it's 0 to 60 or it's one side or the other. Yeah. And so like if you don't agree with me, if you're not on my side, you're the enemy. I hate you. This is hate speech. You're a bigot. You're a racist. Like we have those two directions, like 0, 60, and that actually even affects Christian communities too. Is we start behaving in that way even with other Christians. If you disagree with me on these side issues, you're a heretic.
Right.
Yeah.
We do that. We do the Christianized version of it. We're not calling it hate speech and bigot and racist. We're saying heretic and son of perdition. Like,
well,
you know what I mean? Like you have a tattoo. Oh, that's cool. How's it feel to be a son of perdition?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Right.
Like,
Well, it's seriously an abuse of presuppositional apologetics.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I learned in my little Reformed community that like I know what truth is.
Yeah.
And I know what objective meaning is, and either this. And so it's like, but yeah, you still can't, like your reaction to something being true or not is still subjective.
Yeah.
If you're totally like keeping the Bible out of it, if it's just your traditions, if it's just your feelings and emotions, you don't get to join this club and be like, oh, Christians, we know what truth is. And then be like, well, tattoos are evil, though.
Right.
And not be willing to have any conversation, not be willing to, and just...
nuance.
And just the unsolicited, I don't know, it's very hard. I think it's a hard balance for people it's almost like we're just so little on the internet that we don't know how to do it. We're like a bunch of children on there right now. We read an article and you have Christians that are actually, they're being so ungracious to their brother or sister that posted the article, and they're giving grace to the person who wrote the article that is adopting the world's standards.
Yes.
It becomes this weird, like, we're so lacking in critical thought that, like, we know where to give grace, but we don't even know where to give it to.
Yes.
And it's to the point where well, and by the time this comes out, you can go read this blog. Summer did an excellent blog. She wrote it today, but I don't know when this is coming out. Just talking about, there was an article on a well-known Christian site that was attempting to separate sex and gender, even though the Christian worldview would be that those things are the same. There is no separation. There is no, well, I have these parts, but then I feel more this one way. That's not, there's no like duality there. Like, you are what you are, you know? And you share an article like that, or you share that article and you say, this person who wrote this article is using the same definition as the world for gender and sex. And people are like, oh, well, I just think they're trying to say this, and you're hateful for accusing them of saying this. And it's just like, I don't know how we backtrack from, I guess the point is you don't backtrack. If we're all kids on the internet, then the idea is to like move forward and grow up.
Right. Grow up.
There's no backwards. There's only like go forward and figure out how we're supposed to be. And I guess Christians are supposed to be the example of how to behave on the internet and how to behave in critical thought.
This is perfect. It's a perfect sort of connection to the interview we just had with Dr. Michael Brown. You'll see Christians who know Jesus, they know the gospel, they've been transformed by God. All of us, I think, we all struggle in this area. This is not me saying, and look at these people over here, that we've all had to walk through this or are walking through it currently, in terms of how we have to be able to understand truth, know truth, cling to Christ, care about truth, be willing to fight boldly for the truth, but also to not be a jerk.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I mean is, like, for example, we ought to be concerned, and if anyone knows Apologia, you know our commitment to bold confrontation with the world when it comes to truth. I mean, we get in trouble a lot because we'll stand on truth. We'll get threatened because we stand for truth and boldly, and we won't relent and we won't give up, and we'll say, take our heads off, take us to jail. It doesn't matter. So people know we're not saying here placate and give up and compromise. But what we need to learn is that we can have a commitment to the truth that is unwavering, uncompromising, and that is bold, but still be like Jesus in that tax collectors, prostitutes, and sinners want to eat with you.
Right.
So, like, if you say you love Jesus, but nobody wants to get a cup of coffee with you,
Right.
It's probably not persecution.
Right. Well,
You're probably a jerk.
Right.
And
It's
nobody
honest.
likes you because you are not a likable person.
Right.
It's not because you love Jesus, because the people who were even opposed to Jesus still hung around him to talk to him. Yes, there was persecution, all those things, but tax collectors, sinners, and prostitutes seem to love to hang out with Jesus for some reason.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting because, and I know you want to say something, but with like Dr. Brown, we have significant disagreements with Dr. Brown on issues like the sovereignty of God, charismatic issues, those sorts of things. But we love Dr. Brown. He loves Jesus. He fights for the triune God. And he preaches repentance and faith and salvation as a gift by God's grace through faith in Jesus. All those other issues, I'd like to hang out with Dr. Brown, get a cup of coffee, or he likes to hit the bag, maybe hit the bag together while we're talking about Romans 9 or whatever. But like, we shouldn't, like, what'll tend to happen, I know it's happening right now in the thread. Like, I'm not a prophet, but we've done this show ahead of time.
No, you don't
and
have to
I
be.
know in the thread right now, there's somebody right now saying
You know
they
you
shouldn't
are.
be talking to Dr. Brown because he's a heretic.
Yeah.
He
Right.
did this, he did that.
And they're not listening to what you're saying.
They're not
right
listening.
Now.
Whoever you are, knock it off.
Right.
They can't even hear you.
Just know we did this 3 weeks ago, and we are predicting it, right? It's happening in a thread right now. So it's a perfect way to talk about that. Like, we have got to learn, like, when it's appropriate to lay your life down and to say no and whatever, I'm gonna die,
Right.
set me on fire, burn me at the stake or whatever. And other times to be able to say, like, this is a good time to have dinner together and have a relationship and be
Right.
calm and assume the best about you.
Well, because it's fair enough. I mean, so just really be honest. If you're listening to this right now, really be honest, and just in this topic that I was just talking about, so in the issues of like our confused gender, sex, all that, the confusion that happens there in our culture, like, was there a time when you had to work through that? Did you have to learn what that looked like faithfully? Was there a time when either you read it in the Bible or someone taught it to you in Sunday school or something like that? Did you have to learn that there was a proper biblical ethic regarding that, regarding gender? Did you have to learn that?
Yeah.
So there are plenty of people that are learning it.
Right.
There are plenty of, it would be like, it's one thing to defend and stand behind a worldly definition of something that we know is anti-biblical, and basically be, you can have a nice interaction with someone that is learning what a biblical sexual ethic is supposed to look like. Yeah. So to just assume that everyone is just like standing behind the world when they give their stupid argument, and it's hard. That's like, graciousness is hard. It's hard for me because I hear the same in my, like, the sinful part of me thinks like, I can't even tell you how many times I've answered this stupid email. And when I say stupid, that's an ungracious usage of the word stupid.
Yeah.
Like, you have to die to yourself when you're faithful, and you have to say, okay, no, this person doesn't know that. This person is ignorant. They're yelling at us for something that they don't realize, that, like, they've done the smallest amount of information and or research on this topic, and then they're accusing us of this thing. And the internet is part of the problem, but there's no program or software that is going to fix the internet. Like, it has to be the people that are on it.
The hearts behind the fingers.
Yeah, so it's just worth it, I think, to try to assume you don't now. If someone's being clear and they're clearly wrong, you can still call them out in a way that's gracious and not, you're a heretic and depart from me.
Yeah, I never knew you.
That.
And we do believe that there is a time for the serrated edge.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There are times for the serrated edge. Jesus used the serrated edge, but Jesus didn't use a serrated edge with the woman at the well.
Right.
He had a different tactic with the woman at the well than he did with the Pharisees and the scribes before he pronounces judgment on them in the Olivet Discourse. And so we have to know nuance and balance and appropriate moments.
Yeah.
And in particular, I think when it comes to Christian interaction with each other on the internet, we've got to learn to assume the best about each other and be gracious and work through those conflicts in a different way than just leaping
if you don't
right
want to, like, if that doesn't work for you because you don't get to give your opinion enough and it's too hard for you to put in time to talk to one person instead of 50 people on a comment thread, then I don't know.
Get off them internets.
Leave. Go.
Yeah.
Because it's becoming a problem.
Well, and what I mean is, and I guess we can probably finish here, it ties into how the world influences us in ways that we're not always cognizant of. We're not always aware of it. And what I mean is, like, that mindset and sort of tactic, the methodology of the left and liberalism and the cultural Marxists, all that stuff, when they'll say it's like it's our way or you're a racist, it's our way or you're a white supremacist, it's our way, it's just 0 to 60, it's just like this, or it's hate speech, right? And you're like, no, wait, stop that. Like, it's not. I reject all of that. I despise those positions. but they do that's their methodology. Well, we'll do that too as Christians. We'll just buy right into that mindset. It's like you either see like me in every single issue, or you must not know Jesus,
Right?
or you hate God. You're a son of perdition. Like it's like, well, how about we have a conversation first and get to know each other and give each other a moment and be gracious to each other, and of course fight for the truth, love the truth, don't compromise. But not every moment is Jesus cleansing the temple. He had 3.5 years of a lot of other moments that were not all cleansing the temple moments.
Right. Well, and Jesus promised that they would hate us because of him, but ultimately we should be hated because of the message, not because of us.
Right.
Right. And I mean, even when you talk about like the liberals, it's not because of the message that we don't like them. It's because it results in name calling. Right. Because their message is stupid.
Right.
Right. But they start calling names, like you were saying, and that's what's infecting the church. And I think even to go back to our ministry verse, right, 1 Peter 3:15, and so Christians specifically are very quick to always be ready to give a defense, to give an apologia. They're always ready for that. But they haven't sanctified Christ as Lord in their heart first. They've forgotten that part, and they surely aren't doing it with gentleness and respect. And so they're just coming in, chopping heads, taking knees, and they forgot about the rest of it. And like you said, I think that's come from the culture. We've allowed that to infect the church, and we forget that Christ said they will know us by our love for one another.
Yeah, we're supposed to be the influencers. Exactly. We're supposed to be the ones that are setting the example and the tone for how to think and how to live, how to act. And of course, with human experience, it's complicated because we're all sinners. None of us are Jesus. We're covered in Christ's righteousness, but as a gift, but we're not Jesus. And so we have to learn to navigate this in terms of balance. Like when's the right moment to confront something and to use a serrated edge and just to be honest, and another time, when's it time to be gracious and slow and patient and wait and to have balance and allow for nuance and those sorts of things.
Well, and when you see someone else doing those things, when is the time to mind your own business?
Right.
Because half of the internet is just commentary on other people's commentary. Yeah. Well, I don't think you were tough enough on him with this. It's like, well, you weren't a part of that conversation.
Oh, the tactic I was using it's Latin nunya.
Yeah, right. Yes.
None your business.
None your business. Right.
Yeah. Or people, Wade and I, look, I used his name, Wade.
Big ups to Wade.
Big ups to Wade. Wade and I were talking about that in terms, maybe we could finish this. I had a conversation with Douglas Wilson, and I think it's up on Amazon Prime now. We're talking about social media. And Doug brought something to my attention that I hadn't even thought about. And I was like, man, I'm so glad that he reminded me of that. He was talking about people, how we, as Christians, we need to engage the public square on the internet. We have these amazing tools now. Right. It would be a tragedy if we didn't use them. But people are concerned, like, well, if you turn a camera on when you're out there preaching the gospel, people could start trying to become celebrities and rock stars by turning the camera on. And Doug made a good point. I think he's exactly right. He said, Doug says, I don't buy that. He says, I think that the person today who turns the camera on and becomes prideful or sinful because they're playing to the camera while they're preaching the gospel or whatever, he says, I think that's the same guy 200 years ago that would have been wearing the long robes and praying the long prayers in the marketplaces. Because it's a heart issue. Yeah. It's not a camera issue. It's not a tool issue. Right. It's a heart issue. But he brought something up to me that I just hadn't thought about. He talked about how do you avoid when you turn a camera on, like who are you talking to? Are you talking to the Mormon? Are you talking to the crowd you're preaching to? Or are you thinking about the camera? And it was amazing because he brought to my attention that I had and we had been preaching the gospel on the street for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours before there was ever audio or a camera. Like I remember times where it was 1:30 in the morning and I was outside the Mormon temple in Mesa in the dark talking to the guy who plays God in the temple ceremony. And the only people that heard that conversation was this false God, me, and the real God. Yeah. There was no camera. There was no audio. It was just because I needed to preach the gospel. These people need Jesus. And then the cameras came later. Right. But this is interesting in thinking about like how we can, men and women, think about using these tools for the gospel with audiences and people watching is when people will make comments as they'll see stuff. We'll do evangelism videos, and they'll say, why didn't you say this? And why didn't you say that? And why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? And I want to say very humbly, and this is what Wade and I were talking about, I didn't do it for you.
Right.
Right.
Like
You're not my audience.
You weren't my audience, and I wasn't out there preaching to this person for you. Like, I did it for Jesus, and I did it ultimately for the person I was talking to. And that was a Spirit-led encounter. And the reason I didn't say it like you wanted me to is because I wasn't doing it for you or your entertainment or for your pleasure.
Right.
I did it for God and His glory, and I was trying to do it to reach this person. And like Luke wrote in the book of Acts, a record of what happened with Paul when he preached the gospel and the church was built up and he argued with the Hellenistic Jews and they wanted to kill him. He recorded that event so that you would benefit from that. We're uploading these videos for the same purpose. And it's ultimately for God's glory, for the benefit of the church, you know, for the name of Christ and His glory, but it's not for your sake. And so you're right. Sometimes it's none. Praise God. Yeah. Sometimes.
That was clearly Wade.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a very simple. Like, this is none your business. Mind your business.
Right.
And sometimes I think we need to learn as Christians. Like, and I'm talking to myself here as much as anybody else. I think we have to be sanctified to learn when just to shut up.
Oh yeah.
Like, is it a good way to just shut up? Like, if you see something, ask yourself the question, is this worth dividing with this person over? Is it worth hurting this person over? Is this really that big of a deal? Or can I right now just shut up?
Yeah.
And mind my business.
Right, yeah.
For the glory of God.
Right.
Like, would Jesus be pleased right now with me just shutting up?
Well, and so we sorry to plug Sheologians again, but we did an episode.
Feel free.
We did an episode called Minding Your Own Business, basically.
Yeah.
And like, minding your own business doesn't just mean like not paying attention to other people's business. It means minding your own business, doing your own work.
Right.
So like, you can stop looking at the internet when you need to, and you can go serve your family.
Yeah.
And if there's something wrong in your life, mind your own business, not just by staying out of other people's business. Let them do their work, but you do yours.
Right.
Like, that is a very important part of that is what minding your own business actually means.
And that's actually in the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, let's say the New Testament calls it being a busybody.
Right. Yeah.
And the Proverbs calls that keeping your foot in your neighbor's house.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So get your foot
Right.
out your neighbor's
I don't even know what that means.
You know, but being a busybody, you know, and it applies to social media. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine.
One of my favorite things that Doug said that we use all the time is talking about social media. He says we should view it with grateful suspicion.
Grateful suspicion.
Yeah.
Right. So we should be thankful for it because it's an amazing tool that we can use to God's glory, but we need to be very suspicious of it and use it very cautiously.
Because of our own sin.
Because of our own sin.
Yeah.
Because we're all a wreck.
Right.
Yep.
Sinful.
So if
all
you're an
rotten.
angry, hateful person, you have business to take care of.
Yes.
Like, if it's the heart will like what comes out of the heart, right?
Yes.
So if
Out of the
everything
abundance
you-
of heart, the mouth speaks.
Right. So if everything just because you're not speaking it on the internet, everything you're typing is angry, then that means you are not doing your own work.
Yes.
You are neglecting the work that's supposed to be done because you're angry.
Yeah.
And that is not how we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Out of the abundance of the fingers.
Right.
Right. Or out of the abundance of the heart, the fingers type.
Right. Yes.
And it works the same way. It doesn't have to be vocalized.
Right.
It can just be poo-poo coming out of your fingers.
Right.
Spiritual poo, right?
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
loopholes there.
Yeah. So there you go. Good show.
Good show.
Amen.
On that
Yes.
note.
Good. All right. Good. All right. Catch you guys next time here next week. That's Luke. That's Joy. See you next time.